tipping has been a part of our society for a long time. It started as a way to show appreciation for great service, especially in restaurants and hotels. People would leave a little extra money to thank their servers or hotel staff for going above and beyond. But over the years, tipping has changed a lot. It's not just about rewarding exceptional service anymore. Now, we often feel pressured to tip in all sorts of places, even when the service is just basic or when we're not getting any special treatment at all. This spread of tipping to new areas has led to what many are calling tipping fatigue, a feeling of being overwhelmed or frustrated by constant requests for tips. Check out the full details by visiting the link in the description. A recent survey by USA Today found that 63% of people think too many places are asking for tips these days. Nearly half of those surveyed, 48%, said they're tired of being asked to tip so often. These numbers show that tipping fatigue is a real issue for many of us. In this video, we'll look at 26 places where tipping has become expected, even though you do not need to tip. These are spots where we're now expected to tip, even though it doesn't fit with the old ideas about tipping. We'll see how this trend affects our daily lives and our wallets. What do you think about all these new tipping expectations? Do you feel pressured to tip in these situations? Number 1. Fast food restaurants. Fast food places are starting to put tip jars at the counter. This is odd because fast food is all about quick, simple service. We order at the counter, grab our food, and go. There's no table service or extra attention. So why are we suddenly expected to tip? It feels like the idea of fast, affordable food is changing, and not everyone is happy about it. Number 2. Coffee shops. Coffee shops now often have tip jars or ask for tips when we pay by card. This has become so common that many of us feel we have to tip for a simple cup of coffee. But making and serving coffee is just what baristas do. It's their job. The coffee is already priced to cover this service. Adding a tip on top of that can make a regular coffee run more expensive than it needs to be. Number 3. Food trucks. Food trucks are great for quick, tasty meals, but many now ask for tips, just like sit-down restaurants. This is confusing because buying from a food truck is a lot like buying from any other counter service. We order, pay, and take our food. There's no extra service involved. Asking for tips at food trucks makes a simple transaction feel more complex and potentially more expensive. Number 4 on our list of places Americans are now pressured to tip is ice cream shops. Even ice cream shops now often have tip jars or ask for tips when we pay by card. This trend has popped up in places where we serve ourselves, scooping our own ice cream. It's strange to be asked for a tip when we're doing most of the work. This new expectation can turn a fun treat into a slightly awkward experience, making us wonder why we're tipping for such a simple transaction. Number 5. Takeout orders. Tipping for takeout orders has become more common, especially since the pandemic started. Many restaurants now ask for tips when we pick up food, even though we're not getting table service. This is confusing because we're already paying for the food and the work that goes into preparing it. Adding a tip for takeout can make the meal significantly more expensive than we planned. Number 6. Hotel housekeeping. Leaving tips for hotel housekeeping has become pretty standard, even for short stays. But isn't keeping rooms clean just part of what we're paying for when we book a hotel? This extra tipping can add up, especially on longer trips. It makes us wonder if hotels should just pay their staff better wages instead of relying on guests to top up their pay. Number 7. Pharmacies. Some pharmacies have started putting tip jars at the counter. This is surprising because pharmacies are places where we get medicine and health advice. Pharmacists are trained professionals who are already paid for their expertise. Asking for tips in this setting feels out of place and could make people uncomfortable when they're dealing with health issues. Number 8 on our list of places Americans are now pressured to tip is valet parking. When we use valet parking, we usually pay a fee for the service, but then we're often expected to tip the valet on top of that. This double payment can feel like too much. It's not always clear why we need to pay extra for a service we've already paid for. This practice can make valet parking feel like a hidden extra cost when we're just trying to park our car. Number 9. Buffet servers. At buffets, we mostly serve ourselves. The staff might clear tables and refill drinks, but we're doing a lot of the work. Still, tipping is often expected. This can feel odd because we're not getting the same level of service as in a regular restaurant. The expectation to tip at the same rate as full-service restaurants can seem unreasonable and confuse diners about how much to tip. Number 10. Delivery services, non-food. Tipping for package or grocery deliveries is becoming more common. But these services already charge delivery fees. The expectation to tip on top of that can make these convenient services feel a lot more expensive. This practice can significantly increase the overall cost of using these services and raises questions about fair compensation for gig economy workers. Number 11, pet shops. Tipping at pet shops is becoming more common, especially for grooming services. But we're already paying for these services, often at pretty high prices. Adding a tip on top can make pet care feel much more expensive than we planned. It's worth asking why the listed prices don't already cover fair pay for the groomers and other staff. This trend could make pet ownership more costly, which isn't great for pet lovers on a budget. Number 12. On our list of places Americans are now pressured to tip is convenience stores. Believe it or not, tip jars are showing up at convenience store counters. This is odd because convenience stores are usually self-service. We grab what we need and pay at the counter. The staff ring up our purchases, but that's a basic part of their job. Asking for tips in this setting can make a quick stop feel more complicated and potentially more expensive. Number 13. Gas station. In some places, tipping gas station attendants who pump our gas is expected. But pumping gas is their main job, and in some states, it's required by law. The expectation to tip for this standard service can create confusion, especially for out-of-state drivers unfamiliar with local customs. Before we continue with the video, take a quick moment to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Plus, we've got some helpful resources in the description. Check them out and share your comments after you're done watching. Number 14. Hair salons and barbers. Tipping hairstylists and barbers has been common for a long time. But haircuts and styling services are often already pretty expensive. The expectation to add a big tip on top can make these services feel overpriced. It makes us wonder if the prices should just be higher to pay staff fairly, without relying on tips. Number 15. Dry cleaners. Some dry cleaners now have tip jars or hint at tips. But dry cleaning is a straightforward service that we're already paying for. The introduction of tipping at dry cleaners blurs the line between service industries where tipping is traditional and those where it isn't. Number 16 on our list of places Americans are now pressured to tip is furniture delivery. When we buy furniture, delivery is often included or we pay a separate fee. Now, there's often an expectation to tip the delivery people too. This can significantly increase the cost of buying furniture, which is already a big expense for most people. It raises questions about the true cost of delivery services and fair compensation for delivery staff. Number 17. Moving services. Moving is expensive. We pay the movers for their time and effort. But now, there's often an expectation to tip on top of these fees. This can make an already costly service even pricier. It leaves many people wondering why the quoted price doesn't include fair pay for the hard work of moving. Number 18. Ride-sharing services. Ride-sharing apps have made tipping drivers a standard part of the experience, often prompting users to add a tip after each ride. These services already include various fees in their fare calculations. The expectation to tip on top of these fees can significantly increase the cost of using ride-sharing services and raises questions about fair compensation for gig economy workers. Number 19. Tour guides. When we pay for a tour, the price usually includes the guide services, but tipping tour guides has become expected. This can catch tourists off guard, especially if they're on a tight budget. It makes the true cost of tours unclear and can add unexpected expenses to a trip. Number 20 on our list of places Americans are now pressured to tip is freelance service providers. Tipping photographers, musicians, and other freelancers is becoming more common. But these professionals set their own rates for their work. The new expectation to tip can make hiring freelancers confusing and more expensive than anticipated. It raises questions about how freelancers should price their services. Number 21. Repair shops. Some people now expect to tip plumbers, electricians, and other repair professionals. But these services are already pretty expensive. Adding a tip on top can make necessary repairs feel overpriced. It makes us wonder if repair companies should just charge more upfront to ensure their workers are paid fairly. Number 22. Home services. Tipping expectations have expanded to include various home services, such as lawn care or house cleaning. These services typically come with set fees that customers assume cover all aspects of the work. The addition of tipping expectations can make these services feel overpriced and may lead to confusion about the true cost of maintaining a home. Number 23. Grocery stores. Some grocery stores have started putting tip jars at checkout counters. This is a big change for a place where we're used to doing most of the work ourselves, picking out our items and often even bagging them. Cashiers play an important role, but their service is already included in the prices we pay. Adding tipping to grocery shopping could make an essential task more expensive for many families. Number 24 on our list of places Americans are now pressured to tip is retail stores. Some stores now expect tips for services like gift wrapping. But isn't this just part of the store's customer service? Adding tipping to retail experiences can make shopping more complicated and potentially more expensive than we planned. Number 25. Food delivery apps. Apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash push us to tip, but they also charge delivery fees. This can make ordering food delivery much more expensive than the menu prices suggest. It raises questions about how these apps pay their drivers and if the fee structure is fair to customers. The last place that Americans are expected to tip, even though they don't need to, is personal services. Tipping in personal service industries, such as for tattoo artists or nail technicians, has become standard practice. These services often already come with high price tags that customers assume cover the full cost of the service and the professional's expertise. The expectation to tip on top of these prices can make personal services feel overpriced to many consumers. Our look at these 26 places shows how much tipping has changed. It's now part of many everyday transactions, making them more complex and often more expensive. This shift raises important questions about fair pay, clear pricing, and the real cost of goods and services in our society. Maybe it's time for a bigger conversation about tipping. Should it keep spreading, or should we push for pricing that ensures fair pay without relying on tips? There's no easy answer, but it's something worth thinking about next time we see a tip jar in an unexpected place. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget the link in the description.